right, welcome to another edition of Grown Folks Business on a Thursday evening. Sorry for the late start. I was having some computer technical difficulties. It is time for another Mac, and I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. Who wants to buy a new computer? But it's getting there. So listen, wonderful people in the space tonight. I'm so glad to see some faces that I've invited in the past that made it to a few, and I'm so glad to see the familiar faces that always seem to make it in. And I want to welcome Mr. Fagola. He's one of my favorite professors from my time at UNCG and undergrad. So I'm glad you could make it in this evening. Just join into the flow of the discussion. Everybody else has been in the space before. It's nothing prioritized in order of gains to be made here. It's just community interaction and just wonderful time shared and spent together and just having a conversation. And Lisa, thanks for checking on me because, it ain't like me to be late. So she was like, is the show canceled? I'm like, no, I'm coming. It just, I had to treat my Mac like the old Model T Ford and crank the handle this evening before it got started. So, Ajane, thank you for coming. Glad you can make it, joining us all the way from Texas. Bob, good to have you back from your trip in Africa, and I've heard enough about it. I know there's more that you just are processing as we go along, and I think some of that may come up in tonight's discussion. Greg and Julia, always a pleasure. Again, Lisa, thank you, and again, Mr. Fagola, thanks for joining us. So, tonight's topic is hey, how you doing, Mary Carmen? I always butcher your name, but you don't hold it against me. Thanks for joining us this evening. I appreciate you viewing out there. So tonight's topic is save, waste, share. What are we doing with our most valuable commodity? So I leave that kind of open-ended for you to tell me what your most valuable commodity is, because I say it's ours because I think I have the definitive answer to that question. But I could be wrong. So we'll unpack it as we go along, and you guys can tell me what your thoughts are on the matter. So save, waste, or share. What are we doing with our most valuable commodity? What is our most valuable commodity and why? So that's the first question. So what is our most valuable commodity and why? Jay, good to see you. I have a full bill tonight. This is like a packed house. When the screen is full, I feel good. It makes me feel like for some reason people want to be here. So glad to see everyone in the space. The question again, and I will begin with Lisa, since I can rely upon her participation, and then I'm going to come to you, Mr. Fagola, since you're new to the space. And again, I greatly appreciate you being here. So, what is our most valuable commodity and why, Lisa?
Oh boy, so I had to dig deep for this one because I think of the traditional meaning that culturally we're aware of commodities being more tangible things, but I know you want depth, right? So for me, as I have gotten over this middle age hump, it's time, right? It's time, and that time I have to invest wisely, and I'm spending more and more time regularly denouncing engagements with people. So I'm protecting where I'm investing my time. And it is some growing pains for people who have known me for a very long time, because it's not like me. I've just allowed too many people to have access to me without understanding that I'm losing that time. And it's my value, not, not to devalue anyone else, but I have to be the keeper of that commodity of mine.
You are absolutely right. The question has been answered in my mind. Now, time is our most valuable commodity. That is something I have to say for certain is an assurance that I wake up with, that I go to sleep with, because our time here is finite. So, what are we doing with it? I was listening to this little chat, whatever you call it, the things, the inspirational chat guy, and he was talking about how much we slept. Like 8 years of your life is spent sleeping, and uh, how much time is spent traveling, how much time is spent watching a movie or doing something that's not necessarily quote unquote productive. Some of them I have challenges with because I think rest is a requirement. I think it's necessary, and I think we can be productive from a time standpoint while we're resting or even while we're sleeping. But we'll get to that. I kind of jumped ahead. Great observation, Lisa. Mr. Fagola, I'm coming to you now. That's how it works here. Just jump in and say your piece and unmute yourself and mute yourself back when you're done talking. But what are your thoughts on tonight's topic, and how do you feel? Is time? I guess I can ask it that way now. Is time the most valuable commodity? You got to unmute yourself.
All right. Well, when we had lunch, for some reason, I had implanted in my head that we were going to talk about water, and of course, the more I think about it and look what's going on in Mississippi and Flint, and even in this town, I mean, it's we've had excess of toxic water that we're importing from the Hall River for some reason, which I don't know. Because then we have a big dam built so that we didn't have to run into this problem. And, the toxic levels that they had were actually 10 times too high to begin with. So, and I was ready to talk about that. But I must say that I have to say that time is absolutely the most precious commodity. And if you're looking at it from my point of view, and I'm retired now, mostly retired, and you look back, and I see a lot of people have passed away. Your time and how you use it, and how you use it wisely, or how you use it just for your own personal growth, or your own peace of mind, or your own internal or even external goals, is absolutely, I think, right on target. So my whole thinking tonight just shifted. Was it Lisa with Lisa's introduction there?
Awesome. I'm glad that you could share that, because that water thing was on my mind also. But even in regards to our infrastructure and the failures in Mississippi, and I think now Baltimore is dealing with something, it's time related. Be proactive. Take care of this stuff while in process. I read an article the other day that said most of our plumbing and sewer in this country is over 100 years old. I mean, that's stuff that should be built in our thinking as being highly necessary of maintaining for us to have healthy existences here. And, Flint, why haven't we learned anything from what happened in Flint?
Well, can I jump in on something again on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the real failure, I think it's becoming more and more apparent, of our political system, where the two parties, and then you have people in there can stay 40 years, is that everything is geared to the next election, and we have almost zero long-term planning. Now, we hear about this, I forgot, $1 billion plus infrastructure bill, right? But what I'm not seeing as part of that bill is that people have to not just repair what we have. We're always on the back end, but to think about long-term planning for the future. And whatever we think about China and its political ideology and how they enforce it, I always give this example. For 20, 25, maybe 30 years, people were, the people in Raleigh, at least some of them, were trying to get a little commuter line, railroad line, from Chapel Hill and Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and Durham. After 20 years and a lot of discussion and almost going ahead, Duke said, no, we don't want a line going by one of our facilities. And it died, right? It's not going to happen. Meanwhile, this is over 25 years or something. China built a railroad through Tibet at 13,500 feet. It's so high that at a certain point, oxygen masks have to come down. In Chongqing, which is about, I was there, 38 million people. They're anticipating how many ring roads, how the subways are supposed to connect, what the water situation, treatment is supposed to be. We don't hear any of that. It's all about, repairing what we have. The other problem, though, is, we have, as you said, very old infrastructure, right? But if we don't come up with new systems at a time when climate change is so hellacious, then we are only going to be always behind. We're never going to advance. And and there's been no word that I've seen that in order to get any of this money, you have to come up with a plan that shows a long-term plan of how you're going to invest this money in a way that's going to be beneficial, not for today and the contractors, not for next week or next year. Well, how's this going to benefit from 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 40, maybe even 50 down the line?
Yeah. So I think we definitely have to acknowledge how strongly and inseparably connected time and planning are. That they are in lockstep. If you don't plan, you don't. I forget how it goes. If you plan, if you
fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Plan to fail. Amen. So yeah, you have to, and we've talked about that before in this space. So absolutely. And just lastly, on the political front, because you guys know I'm definitely just cinders right now when it comes to political stuff. But I literally was speaking this morning about Mississippi, and where's the Congressional Black Caucus on this? Everybody's saying all this other stuff about any other thing that's going on in the world. And now the Queen's just died and everybody has something to say, but there's no strong commentary on a 80% populated Black American area that water system has completely failed in. We can go back to Flint. Thanks, Shalita. Absolutely. Preparation. Proactive is I'm a big fan of being proactive, not reactive, but America's very reactive. So yeah, where is the political outrage about something that's happening here? We have a lot of energy for what's happening outside of the United States, but we don't seem to have any for fixing our own population, our own citizenry. But yeah, so we're on that type of time. Thanks for joining us also, Meryl. As you can see, we got a full house. So I'm gonna say, and Mary Carmen says rest most day. Oh yeah. We got to reset. That goes back to a couple of weeks ago. I think Lisa and I were talking about recalibration. Got to have that time. I want to make sure we understand that since we got a lot of people, let's kind of get through the space. But you know how we get here, so I'm here for it all, and we're gonna do what we got to do. Ajane, been a while since I saw you, so I'm glad you're in the space too, and I'm coming to you with the ask of what is our most valuable commodity and why.
This wasn't difficult for me, but it really got me thinking about what am I looking for when I study communities, when I study the construction of communities, when I study power, when I look at the environment, when I look at, health and wellness. And for me, I agree with y'all that it's time, but for me, our most valuable commodity has got to be the love, because I believe that love is what's going to cause you to not only find your passion, but to love yourself and to find what you've been made to do enough so that you can use that time wisely and so that you can devote your time and see time as something that you have to buy back in order to walk this life and complete the mission that you've been designed to complete. I believe that love is what's going to cause each of us to look at things and to find the real importance past money and to see value the way that it should be. One of the things that I find just me living this life, having grown up in this nation, studying as a student, learning as a sister, as a daughter, a student, and in all aspects of my life, I found that the absence of love means that there's no power there. There's no power to really formulate thoughts in your mind and find out how you're thinking about things and whether or not, if that's the way you should be thinking about things, something has to be motivating you through this life. Something has to be motivating you, and it's got to be something that's real. And so many things are so relative to just the time we're living in. So many things are so relative to your experience. But what is going to hold us together and help us come on a playing field where we can get things done, where we can see value in ourselves, value in each other, to say, you know, we have to bear this burden together and fix these things. And for me, that is love. And for me, your love and your passion is what's going to cause you to devote your time to whatever it is that you've been put here to do. And so I won't take up too much more time, but for me, it's got to be the love. Time can be spent wisely, unwisely. What's the difference? The difference is, for me, inside of myself, the difference is, what do I love? How do I use love? And so that kind of navigates, that helps me to navigate how I use my time, and how I use it to help other people, and how I use it to, Lord, help myself, you know? So, so that's how I keep it together. I weigh everything with my most valuable commodity, and that's love for me.
Yeah, I love that answer, and that's a whole different conversation that I like to have in regards to that thing that compels you to, as we are discussing, you can look at where somebody spends their time, what somebody spends their energy and time doing. And I'll just jump ahead because this is going to be just a great discussion, so I can do this. So, Ajane, to that point, one of, I think, the more grander gestures and that is connected to love and time is sharing your time. I think you guys have often heard me say in this space, you know, thanks for sharing the time. That's critically important. And that's a sign of significant adoration, if not just outright love, when you take the time to spend with somebody that you don't have to. I did not consider love, I agree, definitely a commodity. Yes, I mean, it's a valuable thing. Well said, Mary Con, thank you. It's a valuable thing, and when you choose to share your time with someone, that is akin to love, if not just outright that. Jay Dwayne, what is our most valuable commodity and why?
Man, I love you guys' responses, and you know, when she said love, I was like, ah. But no, I was torn from the very beginning with time, because I'm ashamed to say this, one of my favorite movies was actually Jupiter Ascending. And the concept of the movie was really talking about how Earth don't understand what value is. We put our value in money and in these things, but the true commodity is time. But the one that I was thinking about more than anything, because I live in the value-based education space, is the value of appreciation. We can talk about everything that we're talking about, even with time. If you don't appreciate the time that you have, you will misuse it. If you don't appreciate the human capital or the human resources that we work with on a day-to-day basis, you will miss the mark. If you spend more time finding ways to devalue something versus appreciating it, you are losing life. And so I definitely believe that appreciation is probably a commodity that is very necessary, and one that is often overlooked in so many different spaces.
Well, interesting. And this is why I so enjoy you guys in this space, the routes that we take in the conversation that are not necessarily the obvious ones. And even when they are obvious, such as the case with the mini riddle that I had tonight, time is the most obvious answer. You still find ways and avenues to add on to it, or to make it not just a paramount thing. And so as someone who tries to remain in a eternal state of leave that up for a moment, Diane, tries to remain in a total state of appreciation. I think Jay, it's just as important that we recognize that we should appreciate our existence, and that is time. So yeah, I mean, I love it. You should give that appreciation, and you should appreciate it as you exist every day. Joyce says, "I agree with love. Love keeps you grounded, and what is right? What is the right thing to do?" Absolutely. I mean, if you go through this thing called life and spend all of your time just concerned about what you can get, who you can get over on, and how it's going to benefit just you, and making sure you're okay, I don't think that's much of a life lived. I can't imagine that it is, and you're missing out on so many things throughout that process. Bob, coming to you, man, our man in Africa. Bob, how you doing? Glad you're back. What do you think about this most valuable commodity?
Yeah, so man, the comments thus far have just been all on point. And this is one of those, what's your favorite thing? Well, I got many favorite things. What's your most valuable commodity? Okay, yes, time, water, love, appreciation, gratitude. Appreciation and gratitude, we know scientifically, and I know that through my scientific leadership and character scholar friends, is the most healthy emotion that we know, that we can experience, that we can share, that we can feel. Love is, if you're faced with anything and you move into it with love, that's the best and most valuable, useful guiding principle to move forward on anything with. If you're faced with uncertainty, if you're faced with a challenge, if you're faced, love, move forward with love, rely on love, and that will show you the way. Time, yeah, I mean, time is, we have a limited time. We all have a limited time, and we don't know how limited it is. So we have to take the position that it's more limited than it might be. And we have to be grateful for the time that we have, because every bit of time is more than we deserve. And we have to spend that time loving, because otherwise it's useless. So tying all those things together, I think that that's kind of where we land, is be grateful for the time, use it with love. And I think we, in our culture, get messed up about time. And so I will say that I think the thing that we have to best sort out about the things that we have responsibility over and things that we need to nurture is time, because we are told how to use it. We are conditioned in terms of how we should use it. We are hyper about how we should use it. We get obsessive about how we should use it. And we get greedy and we get selfish about it. And so what we do with it is harder and bigger than I think that we can really talk about or appreciate, because we're pummeled with what the right ways are, what's the best use of our time. Oh, that's a waste of time. Oh, that's a use of time. Well, okay, for you it's a waste, for me it's a value. I mean, and you mentioned my time in Africa. I was away for 5 weeks, and I'm an introvert. Introverts value private time. I was with people from moment of getting up to moment of going to sleep for 5 weeks. That's exhausting. And yet it was fantastic time. That said, I also completely disengaged from the world of the United States. And I was very, very present in my time where I was. doing what I was doing with my backpack and my duffel bag. All my possessions were my backpack and my duffel bag. And I'm with the people I'm with, seeing the stuff I'm seeing, interacting with the people I'm meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, completely in the moment. And yes, I was ready for a 15-hour plane ride of being quiet, but I loved every minute of the time I was doing what I was doing. And guess what? The fact that I unplugged for that time let me stay unplugged when I got back and have a better and more refreshed perspective on how I really should be spending my time here. And what I think is a good use of my time here versus my conditioning before I went on my trip about what I should be doing with my time here. So I say that to just simply say what I've just said. I mean, it's a challenging topic, and we can't. I really don't want to leave out the matter of love. I really don't want to leave out the matter of gratitude and appreciation, because I really want to bundle all of that stuff in to the concept and idea of time. And I also don't want to leave Anthony's comments about water unattended, because if you're in Africa, you understand water. You understand the necessity and the challenges of water.
I think a good thing to interject into everything that you're connecting is time well spent. So, regardless of your personality traits, regardless of how you interact with others and desire to be alone at certain stages, the time well spent aspect kicks in when you when you recognize the fact that this endeavor, you have to be there whole. You couldn't go to a place outside of your normal surroundings. You can't go to a place outside of your normal surroundings. I don't care if it's up the street and around the corner, somewhere outside of your normal surroundings, and you can't not be wholly present. That requires not just the time investment, but the attention investment. And that can be time well spent. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and I have to say that going to Africa, or really any place other than our own place, isn't about seeing it. It's about experiencing it. It's about tuning into it. It's about getting to know people, and you have to let yourself do that. And it is a letting of yourself do that. And it's there's intention in it, there's letting in it. But it's the most critical thing, I think, if you really want to be where you are. And that includes letting go where you left.
Yeah, you got to be present in those type of circumstances. Appreciate you sharing that. Greg and Julia, you guys been over there patiently waiting. Mary Carmen says that times that we spend time on nothing or be in place or with people that we might be uncomfortable, perhaps unwanted. Yeah, that time that we spend in those circumstances still has some benefiting qualities in terms of, that you don't like being around those people, or you don't like it. So once you figure that out, I often say, because we as a general population have 9 to 5 jobs, most of us know what that's like. You know what it's like to hit the clock, go to work, you're stuck in this place for 8, 10, 12 hours, can't go anywhere. So I have this theory that you don't quit your job the day you quit your job. That process begins when you realize that you don't like going there. So, Mary Carmen, to that point, you're going to spend time with people you might not like spending time with. Once your mind recognizes that and you start putting your energies towards changing that narrative, then you've already begun the process of submitting your resignation or finding new friends. Go ahead and put that back up, Daniel. Shalita says, life itself is a valuable commodity. Yes, gratitude daily is essential. Absolutely. I think that's the only reason I get by sometimes. Greg and Julia, go ahead and share your thoughts on tonight's topic. You know, what is the most valuable commodity to you guys?
Gosh, such a huge topic, and completely resonate with what everybody has said. Time is the thought that came here, and what everyone has shared, but how we are with people during our time together seems so important. Are we loving? Are we seeing them? Are we really present? Being retired and having like a 9 to 5 and regular structure, it was often easier to know what to do with time. And there was a sense of productivity. But then with being retired and now having a different sense of time. And I notice that whenever I have a sense that it's my time, and I'm not talking about quiet time for mental health, but selfish time is not a good thing. If I could be helping or doing something for somebody else, that is a better use of time. And also choosing and being selective with, as Lisa said, who we spend our time with and what we spend our time on, and being mindful of how we spend our time. And with the people that we are spending time with, are we with them? Are we engaged? And but
I want to say, because I think I love where you're going with this, and I'm hoping this kind of hits home, Julia. I think there's also a respect that has to be given to the people that want to spend time with you, that want to share time with you. So, you know, it is about where we go and what we do. But when somebody that you know, and I'm thinking of my grandmother to a large degree when she was with us, I knew she wanted me to come sit with her, if it was only for 5 to 10 minutes. So even to that point, how great it is to be desired to even share the time. I enjoy this space with you guys because I desire to be here, and it seems like you guys desire to share the time also. So I'm greatly appreciative of that. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I wanted to.
That's good. I'm going to pass it on.
Oh wow, yeah, wonderful conversation. How many do we have on tonight, Belton?
Let's see. My screen is full, so 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 total, I believe.
9.
Donnie's just doing what he does. So
okay, and so that was important to ask because when we asked the most valuable commodity, and I agree with time. You know what else is there? But I was fine tuning it to the word attention. Where do we put our attention? And so that also relates to focus. And Julia was relating a little bit towards, I think, listening, being fully present, and paying attention. And Bob, when he was talking about his trip to Africa, what I was hearing was pilgrimage. And when we go on pilgrimage, we are paying close attention. Our radars are up, our senses are key, and we're paying attention, and we're giving our attention. And that, I think, fine tunes our question here just a little bit. And this also causes me to think about our dear friend Portia. She would often sign her messages with much to do. That lady was focused. She had her attention on what mattered. And I have another dear friend and a mentor. She signs the same way, much to do. So I'm going to sign off with that. Attention, focus, listening, and much to do.
Love it. Yeah, man. I think being present in the time that you're able to have with co-workers, friends, family members, in my case, I was thinking today because I ran into one of my former achievers who's all grown up now. And I said, God, I said, don't I know you? And he's like, oh, man, you know, slap hands and give a hug. But those Saturdays and those college tour trips and things that I spent that time in his presence, it had to be considered of everything you just mentioned. And a lot of that time was shared with Portia, you know. But like I say, much to do. As long as you're here, you better be doing something. Mr. Gold, you want to interject something before I go to Merrill?
Yeah, just a short commentary on what Gregory just said. You know, our contemporary society with the commercials and the Instagram, TikTok, 24-hour news feed, I don't care what, I mean, we're bombarded. And much of it is, you know, much to do about nothing. Spending our time in totally useless, you know, absolutely non-productive. We don't always have to be productive, right? But I don't think we have to just squander our time for the sake of some media company who wants us to buy things. And when Bob says, you know, tune out, really separate, it's hard to do. I mean, it's very hard to do in this country, and it's hard to do in a lot of countries. And maybe one of the things we should all do is do some self-imposed, you know, cutting off of all that, even if it's for 24 hours or a weekend or whatever it may be, and try to, you know, get back to hearing more of our own voices.
Hey, I know I just seen this guy for the first time tonight, so forgive me, but have you been at my house all week? I'm literally leaving tomorrow to go to this retreat, and it's a silent, like a silent meditative space for 2 days. And disconnecting, and Felton knows that's very hard for me. But with what I know I have coming up in a little bit, you must have been at my house for the last couple of days, because even trying to do that, it's been a challenge. But that time, that love, and all the things we're talking about here has made me say, you know what, just forget it. Even if the yard is not cut, even if the house is not totally clean, even if I've got stuff to do, I'm going to the Well of Mercy.
It's critically important, Lisa. I'm glad to hear you're doing that. It's critically important that we do unplug or disengage at some points, even if it's a little bit a day. I have a friend, Bob, and I have a friend, Trey, who mentions, and I'm getting his math wrong, but he talks about how he turns his phone off for this many hours a day, this many days a week, and at the end of the year calculates. And I'm the same. I turn my ring off in a minute. Like, I don't have a problem having my ringer off. I think it is highly critical that we include forethought in seeing the necessity to detach. Don't overextend yourself to the point that you just can't that you now got to try to recoup some of that valuable commodity of time. You can't. Once it's gone, it's gone. So when you see that slowdown is necessary and it's on the horizon, take the detour and go disconnect somewhere. Ajane, I'm gonna come to you, and then I'm gonna get to Merrill and get his thought. Go to that retreat, Lisa. Yeah.
I just wanted to say really quickly that I agree 100%. I'm not an older woman. I'm 26 years old, and I don't have social media. I had social media pages. I was in SGA in undergrad, but I don't get on them at all, and haven't for a lot of years, because right now, as a young woman that's studying to become a doctor of history, this is my time to think. This is my time to formulate my own opinions, find my place within my mind, get a hold of my thoughts, and just be and write and teach and learn and think. And I think that time away, disconnecting, is sort of really affecting the development of our youth, because they're not necessarily finding those quiet spaces. They're not finding spaces in nature. If they are, it's impeded by having to get a photograph or something like that. But what I find with my students, when they come to college, they're scrambling to understand time and to find what they love, because so much of their time has been them consuming other people's time, consuming what other people think, consuming what other people say about this or that. And it scrambles their knowledge of self, and it scrambles their ability to love themselves. It scrambles their ability to see what they love and how they can use what they love to love other people. So, I just kind of chimed in to say it's okay for young people, older people, whoever. You don't have to have those things to be able to connect. Felton, you know me, I work on projects with people that, God put us together. It was something natural. It wasn't because of social media. You can still have a productive social life without having all of that. If you don't want that. For me, it's not healthy for me. Like I said, I'm a young woman who is becoming a mastermind, literally, right? Like that's what the PhD is about. It's about mastering your mind and figuring out so many things about what you think and learning and sharing. And that requires me to not look at other people and what they have going on. It requires me to focus on myself. I have time to do all of that later, God willing. So
yeah, don't disregard, and I know you're not, Ajane, the importance of observation, though. You have to observe, because you can be so focused on that thing that you're becoming a expert in, or a doctor of, and humanity is so. This show is about life, right? That's why we go so many different places, and a lot of times we end up back where we started on topics and matters, because it's all connected about life. So you being a humanities student, an art student overall, I believe is paramount to any endeavor that you go into. So don't forget to observe, even if you don't put that high priority that some do in the value of being clickbait or getting all the views, whatever the other stuff is. The observation is necessary, because we got to talk about it and you got to observe. Meryl, coming to you, man. So what is our most valuable commodity in your mind?
No, this is really great. Like just literal and just kind of like philosophical. I was thinking a lot about, as people were talking a little bit about the things that they value: time, love, being present. I think is really awesome. I love lifting that up. And we definitely are projecting a lot of Gen X and baby boomer sensibilities today. But that's cool. I think the thing that I think is the most valuable is, I was thinking about this, like experiences and relationships, and like being able to use those to spend your time well, to make people feel like you're present and you're listening and helping them. I also think another commodity that's really valuable is like trying to think of things in spectrums. I think you get socialized to like have this very binary view of things, and things are either black and white, right or wrong, and not just be. And then I also was thinking about, as we were talking about, folks were lifting up, nature, water, land, sun. I struggle a little bit about with that thought as a commodity, because I feel like those type of things are more, we're in relationship with water, because it can sustain you and it can kill you. And you don't really own it. So like I struggle with like resources when we reference nature as a resource, because like you can think about it as something to use and take advantage of, instead of being in relationship with. So I said a whole bunch of stuff, but just basically relationships, experiences, I think are the things I value the most.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. And the natural part of it, Meryl, I'm totally on board with the idea of who are we to think that we are in any way able to impact it in its natural form. And when we get to what I think Mr. Fagola is talking about, what Bob observes in another area, what I'm speaking about when I'm talking Mississippi, is our ability to create something that makes nature take care of us in the way that makes the most sense for our existence, and then just let it fail and not maintain. Because like you're saying, man, the best water you're going to drink is the water that flows through the rocks and through the moss and through everything it goes through, and it's just filtered through nature. But we've got these systems in place that we neglect that kind of, expedite that process, and it's to our detriment. It's very, it's nefarious for us not to take better care of.
We don't stay in relationship with it. So I think that's the way. If you think about you being in relationship with these type of things, then it being like a thing for you to take advantage of or to use or to harness, then maybe you think about it differently.
Yeah, I like that too. I think it's kind of like a ship that sails versus one that has an engine. If you got a sailboat, you have to be in relationship with the elements and the nature. And if you have an engine, you just think you can rip through everything. So it's a bit of a disrespect that takes place. Dr. I always want to call you Dr. Mr. Fagola, I'll come to you because you just unmiked yourself, but along with what you're going to say, can you also share how do you know when you're wasting? And since we've established time as the primary one, how do you know when you're wasting time? And just kind of give a quick 2 or 3 minute answer, and we'll get around the room once again. But how do you know when you're wasting time on top of what you wanted to say?
First of all, I want to go back to this comment about the philosophical aspect of treating water as a commodity. Unfortunately, in a capitalist system, everything is treated as a commodity, and there's the number one problem to begin with. For example, the whole Flint disaster, water was treated as a commodity. Not only that, it was like, oh, we can do it cheaper this way, right? Now think about this. What is a big seller now? Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, all these places, right? They're selling water with junk in it, right? Caffeine or this or that, whatever it may be. So we have to really, I think there is a contradiction, and he really pointed that contradiction out between the way we should be regarding natural elements and the way we treat. And there's, I've heard people use even biblical references that, God gave us dominion over the natural world to justify our exploitation of these natural resources. So that is a huge obstacle, because what you're really talking about is a dramatic shift in our essential thinking about just about everything. So I'll stop with that. And how do we know when you're wasting your time? I think when you finally feel that you're really dissatisfied, you have this inkling, and you know that you shouldn't be doing this anymore. You're just wasted your time. And there's that internal voice, right? If you listen to all these external voices, then maybe I'm feeling that way, but I shouldn't, right? So there is a sense within your own value system when you realize that not only you shouldn't do it anymore, but you can't, there comes, depending on what it is, you can't do it anymore because it is a total waste of your time and your life, right? And, I may have told you this. It's like the Jack Benny story, right? Your money or your life. And Jack Benny would say, take my life, I need my money, right? So it's like, you could substitute time for that, right? So anyway, that's my take on it.
Now, I may have should have come to you last because that's the perfect answer. I mean, when you, like, we talked about a couple weeks ago, I believe, relationships and, how do you know when it's over and that type of thing. I forget the context completely, but yeah, we talked about this, and you know when your time is up on a matter. Greg and Julia, I want to give y'all the last word. I know you guys got to go. I appreciate you letting us know that. But if you want to say a couple words before you get out of here, please do.
The only thing I'd like to share in closing is that I'd love to revisit the concept and the notion and the beautiful thing, virtue of sharing. There's a lot that we can share about sharing.
The sharing economy, sharing love. Another topic that Bob brought up, I think, and Gregory mentioned, is pilgrimage. What happens when we go to a different location and change our vibration, change our way of thinking, and what that does for us. We love you all. Thank you for the sweater.
Thank you. And that was one of the questions. It was why is it important to share it? We'll get back to it, I'm certain, as all of these things are connected. Y'all have a wonderful night. Thanks.
Thank you.
So Jay Dwayne, I'll come to you next. Just give me a quick did we lose Jay? Oh gosh. So Bob, I'll come to you really quickly. And if Jay comes back, we'll come back to him. But,
yeah. But before Gregory and Julia left, I wanted to tie together something that Gregory said with something Anjane said. Gregory used the term attention. Anjane used the term social media. Social media is all about attention grabbing. Social media values attention share. And Gregory talked about attention as being such a valuable aspect of time. And I think that is critical, tying the concepts of attention and the conflict of social media asking and demanding and plotting and scheming for our attention, which is nothing more than plotting and scheming for more and more slivers and shares of our time and our important time, because our attentive time is more important than any of our time. And so Anjane is talking about, staying clear of social media. Gregory's talking about attentiveness being the most valuable aspect of our time. And I think both of those are on point, that we are giving up to social media. We are allowing social media to win our space and drive our lives. And that's something that if we really want to live our lives, we need to stay clear of those that want to steer it and want to control it and want to Shanghai it and whatnot, rather than letting us do, as Anjane said earlier, let us love what we love and steer our time in that direction, steer our attention in that direction, and spend our time with education, learning, enlightenment, and whatnot, rather than popularity and whatever else social media is suggesting that is the best of ourselves.
Yeah, so I don't at all disagree with that. I do find the usefulness that of social media that needs to be highlighted, and it's like anything. I mean, media was potentially, it is one of the greatest conveyors of information, right? But it was potentially this awesome way to standardize humanity, to communicate to the masses that we're all one thing, and you can identify with this movie that's a love story because you're a human being, no matter what race, creed, or color. And you can identify with this atrocity because you witness it and you say that's a terrible thing because you're watching another human being experience it. But we make some trash ass movies. Sorry. We make some movies that are wholly different. And it's all about that attention. Like you say, get that attention.
Media, like anything else, has its pluses and its minuses.
Just like social media. Social media in this instance, this is a platform that is displayed on social media.
Right.
I'm glad to be a part of this space with you guys. I think it's healthy and productive to be here. And I think it counters some of that narrative that we'll assign to the majority of what we see in social media. Okay, let me get the room back in order because I want to make sure I don't miss anybody or anything that needs to be said. Ajane, you had something you wanted to say. We lost you for a moment, Jay. I'm coming right back to you after Ajane speaks. Now, with this point of the conversation, everybody seems to have something they want to say outside of the prompts. I'm more than fine with that, and we're getting ready to slide in the home base and get out of here. So just whatever you have left as far as thoughts and the process for tonight's topic, have at it. Go ahead, Ajane.
Felton, I love you. You're my brother, and you know we get into this, right, about media. Because you're a scholar of media, so you see it a different way. I'm a scholar of community, so I see it a different way. For me, I don't think it's necessarily the social media. For me, I think it all boils down to the people. It's about the people, you know, and so social media can be there. What makes it important is people. But people exist outside of social media, and people, you know, had these sort of relationships before social media. And I'm not just saying like, let's get rid of everything. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the value for me is in the people. And so I think that based on people's personal preferences, you have to know, based on your knowledge of self, and a part of loving yourself does include how you interact with people, how you choose to interact with people. And that boils all the way down to social media. Do you choose to interact with people that way? Or do you choose to interact with people on a more personal level? Because, and I know I'll probably get some flag back, you know, whatever, but it's okay. I'm a firm believer that, and I'm firm, Felton, I'm firm in this, that social media, I think that the connections made in social media have been conflated a little bit. I think that we've conflated knowing about someone versus knowing someone, because in the age of social media, people feel the loneliest they've ever felt. And, you know, I'm not negating some of the things that people have used social media for. I know businesses, especially small businesses. I know that there are doctors on social media. I know that there are average people, you know, saying how they feel during historical events, whatever. I will not negate that. But I do think that loving yourself is about figuring out how to use your time. It's about knowing how to ingest all of those things. And so for me, it's just not, trust me, I can observe enough shenanigans without being on social media. I live in a big city. I teach college students, you know, I have friends, like, so the way that I choose to interact is, for me, loving myself dictates that I choose to interact that way. Because right now it's just not healthy for me, you know, and so I leave that open to everyone else's discretion to let love motivate how you spend your time, and to let self-love motivate how you choose to interact and what you choose to not do. So I just wanted to say that.
Definitely need to be considered in any equation, no matter what level of social interaction you're introducing to yourself. No matter where you go, there you are. What's in here and what you really think of yourself is going to exist no matter what you put on, and no matter what filter you use, and no matter how many followers you have. You can't escape this inside of yourself. Mr. Gold, I'm coming to you right after Jay, and then that's when we'll start to wrap up. Jay, any thoughts you want to share on tonight? If you wanted to ask the question, I can ask it. But if you want to just share some thoughts, go ahead.
Yeah, you know me. I'm definitely. We can't live in a space where we say we welcome diversity, but then we have a monolith approach to things. And so, like, the bashing of like social media, I think it's trash because I think a lot of people lack accountability. You can control the narrative of what you experience on social media. And if you're too lazy to do that, say that. You know, a lot of people don't do that. So they pass the blame like, I have a whole organization, and if it wasn't for social media, I would have started an organization. Why? Because when we talk about diversity, if I'm around people that are like me, and those people are not encouraging that entrepreneurial spirit, where then do I get that from? Social media provides diversity. Social media provides appreciation for people to see things, but people who are too ashamed or too afraid to step outside of their comfort zone, it's easy to say it's too much. And I think that sometimes we blame, it's like every phase we blame something. It's like when MTV came out. Remember how that was like, it's these music videos, that music box. It's always something we blame when we don't take the time to say, okay, what am I doing in this equation? And I love how the sister framed it. She said, for me, it is too much. But a lot of people don't do that. So they basket the approach. Just because you had one encounter or a negative encounter, no. Working in healthcare for 19 years, loneliness has been present, but it was actually for the older generation. It was the #1 killer. And now you're seeing a revitalization of the older generation who no longer suffer with loneliness. Why? Because of the implementation of social media. They can now connect with their family that they no longer had connections with. Even in nursing homes now, they have that connection. And so when we start talking about awareness of things, like there is a whole new awareness of certain types of medical conditions and all of those great things. But that's because that is somewhat of an overkill of information. But I don't like the basket approach of blaming anything, because there's so much good out there that we may be robbing. Because when a person takes a hard stance, like I have some friends who hate social media, right? But when there's something that I'm doing, they say, well, why didn't you tell me? Well, I put it out there. Well, so you want me to inconvenience myself to call you when I just reached a whole 100 people with one tap? Now, who's being selfish? So it's always one of those things where it's like, if you want something, meaning if I want a relationship with Lisa, I want to appreciate the things that Lisa appreciates, but Lisa also needs to appreciate the things that I appreciate, where reciprocity has to be a huge factor in that relationship. If it's a one-sided relationship, it's a dictatorship. It's no longer a relationship. So I think any type of approach, we kind of negated the whole point of this. Are we really utilizing the best of our time? Are we really appreciating those moments? Are we being intentional about it? How are we really appreciating something if we're shutting it down? And I just see a lot of times this is what happens in organizations where I literally do training on. People have a value attached to a perspective of a lived experience, and now it's stifling business because they only see it through their lived experience, their only perspective, and they're not open to the diversity of perspectives. So I really feel like we do need to take an approach of saying, like, if we're going to say, hey, I need to be appreciative, be intentional, be appreciative of all things. Make sure that you're finding that level of gratitude in all the things that you're doing, not just the things you want to be appreciative of, because you might be missing a great opportunity. That's it.
Okay. I got appreciate that, Bob. I'm coming after go to Dr. Mr. Fagola, and I got one thing to just say in that, man. Awesome observation, and that is exactly why I don't ascribe a total villainy to certain things. I find social media to be largely useless, in my opinion, and sometimes detrimental. But I totally am aware that at some point, so was radio, so was TV. What you're speaking of are the facts that come with any innovation that our society encounters. There's always somebody who say, what's wrong with sending a damn telegraph? I like tapping my little button and sending, nobody, I don't want to talk to that person, what happened to me dropping my letter in the Pony Express, so I get it. I totally agree with it. It is a subjective thing, and that's why I honor the both sides of the equation, because that is a subjective perspective. Mr. Fagola, get your last words in, and
Okay. Well, since I have to go soon too,
thanks for being here.
I agree 100% with what he's saying. Very eloquently spoken, and I just want to say about social media. Other than Felton, I don't know any of you. But this has been the most engaging exchange, I wouldn't say just in years, maybe decades. So it would not be possible without social media, right? And it's really fascinating, all of this conversation. It's to me, it's electrifying. I mean, I have not heard a conversation like this and can't remember. So yes, and I started some courses. I'm teaching online, so I keep during pandemic. People were really devastated, and without that, it wouldn't have, And I think all of these things can be incorporated. There's good and bad and everything. But I just wanted everybody to know I was sorry that the couple left, because it's just been terrific. It's been very energizing, and I hope to be able to continue. So
you are definitely now a participant in Grown Folks Business. You'll be getting the text from me, man. I'm glad you can make it, and it's good. It's always a pleasure to share the time. I've had many a great conversations with you that I cherish.
I'm going to spread the word. I'm going to spread the word and try to get other people.
Bring them on. Bring them on.
We even, one last little tidbit here. Felton and I, and a young woman he was with at the time, I was teaching this class, screenwriting class, and we didn't finish till almost 10 o'clock. And Felton says, "Hey man, there's what was it? Big Hair, right? Chris Rock, is that what it was? Right?" And we went out. It was like
good hair, good hair, good hair, good hair.
Yeah, good hair. And so we went out. It was 11 o'clock. We didn't get home till like 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's the kind of thing we would do spontaneously. So it's been a lot of fun, and this has been great. And I hope to see you all next week.
Appreciate it, Mr. Pagola. Yeah, I remember that vividly now. And the young lady I was dealing with, man, she broke my heart. So, hey.
Oh, okay. Sorry to bring it up.
I do remember we all went to the movies together, and it was kind of empty theater. Yeah, I'll get a tattooed tear right there, Meryl. Bob, you had something you wanted to interject, and we roll on up out of here.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm the old guy in the room, and when I use the term social media, I'm not talking about this kind of space. I'm not talking about legitimate engagement through cyber or internet methodologies. What I'm talking about when I'm negative toward social media, it's the algorithms that are driving people in places that aren't healthy, that aren't good, and all of that sort of thing, where the algorithms are grabbing attention. I'm not talking about interaction, sharing ideas, healthy space of community. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about those algorithms that are simply driving people to spaces based upon attention share and whatnot, outside of this kind of gathering. This kind of gathering to me is community on the squares. This is not, for me, this is not social media. I get that it is, but that's not what I'm talking about. Just
and that goes without saying. There's no corrective measure that was given to what you were speaking of directly, but I had to acknowledge that. And just like I have to acknowledge like Jay's position on the matter, I get
Jay's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm Jay and I
get why everything is on the table to be mentioned. You didn't even need to say what you said, Bob.
Yeah, but I do, because
but that balance of conversation definitely has to take place, and I'm glad that I'm able to be in the presence of so many people with what I think is the most important diversity commodity, Jay, which is not just the diversity of the diversity of character. Everybody should not. What's important is for us to be able to articulate our differences and have a conversation.
And what we're doing here needs to be blasted out. That's what we need to be doing,
man. So Bob,
stuff that we shouldn't be doing.
Bob, because Mr. Pagola said what he just said, that was a wonderful thing for me and a great moment for him to say that he's more stimulated in this space than he has been. And this is a guy that I know says some wonderful things and has some great conversations. So yeah, I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. Ajane, what's your last words before we get out of here?
I would, first thing I thought about is that it should be much larger, but then, if it gets too large, then people can't engage. But what I'd love to see is this kind of thing. I found that when I teach you screenwriting, remember, more than 12 people, but then they wanted to go to 15, 16. What I'd love to see is pods like this, 9 to 12.
Something else I'm
14,
going to include you into, which I'll include you into this also, and this is also something I needed to say to Ajane before she gets out of here. The next couple months, when I get another RELC physical gathering together, I would love for you to come. That's Racial Equity Learning Community. That's a whole different avenue, but it's all connected under the same umbrella. But Ajane, I want to try to coordinate you coming and speaking in November when you come home. So we need to talk about that in a little bit. But thank you again, Mr. Fagola. Ajane, what are your last thoughts before we get out of here so I can keep it moving?
Okay. I'm going to sign off, and nice meeting all of you.
All right, take care, Mr. Fagola.
You too. Thank you for the opportunity to have me here. I'm always very blessed to be in this space with you all. My last words for Greatest Commodity is that I just hope that as these days continue to get darker, we're living in some dark times, and it's nothing new. It's nothing new, but things are changing in a way that are directly impacting what's going on internally, as they always have. And so as we just move forward, you know, many of us are finding ourselves surrounded by some really negative things. Death, number one. People's peace is constantly being attacked. And, you know, when we talk about wasting, sharing your greatest commodity, I just hope that people out there that have watched this can go and share what you've learned in love, because we're getting to a place where it's getting harder for us to check up on each other, but we have to continue to do that because division, every possible way we can be divided, we're being divided. And, you know, I think the piece of open-mindedness is incredibly important. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. But don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. Stick to, you know, some of your values. Stick to some of those things. Know when you need to compromise and know when you don't need to compromise. And love is going to be that thing that helps you figure that out. I just hope and pray that everyone can just be safe, and that people are making good decisions, staying healthy, and just letting love lead you and guide you, letting love push you to work on yourself every single day, and letting love force you to use what you've been created to do to share out with other people. And so share that love and share that love with yourself and share that love with other people around you, because we have so much work to do, and it's got to be done, and we can't wait. You know, if not us, then who? So those are my final words.
Indeed. Love you, Ajane, and greatly appreciative of your time being shared in this place. And the world's been ending since it began. So we don't know when it's going to happen, but we can act like we care along the way and do better by our fellow man and woman. Speaking of which, Lisa, give me some of your final thoughts before we get out of here and I go watch some NFL football, because that's what I'm going to waste my time doing in a moment.
Man, y'all are some thought-provoking, thinking people. But I'm going to take it all in right now. And at 1 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to leave it right here. And I'm going to let my love for myself experience some time for myself out in nature with myself. And I'm very appreciative for everything everybody has contributed. And I'm going to pass it on. I'm with both of you, sis, bruh, Bob. He's my big brother. I'm with all of y'all because sometimes things can get toxic, but I do want to challenge Miss Willis that a lot of times people don't know what love is, and until we develop and grow. But I'm going to leave with that. All of this was very valuable, and I will share it through my medium which is my phone, because I'm an old head, Bob. And I've heard what Jay Dwayne you had to say, because I was one of those people when I'd come off of social media, and I'm like, well, I didn't know, and they're doing everything to social media, so they're not considering me, but I had to consider them. I was being pretty selfish, but at the same time, like Sis was saying, the toxicity was impeding on my peace. So it's like, okay, am I going to participate in life with people I care about? You know, but anyway, that's a whole nother topic, Felton, for a few weeks from now. But
I love the what is love topic that I'm already stewing around. And I literally have tattooed on my body, love is sacrifice, or sacrifice is love. So I'm interested in unpacking that now. And that was brewing. So that'll be the week after next. I know we're off next week. But man, I appreciate you all. Meryl, take us home with some final thoughts if you have them. And Bob, I'll come right back to you because I already had it on my mind.
I want to say hey to Meryl. That's all I wanted to do. Say hey to Meryl.
Yeah,
So is that your last word, Bob?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's good to see you, Bob. Good to see you back stateside. So yeah, nothing to share. Just like this, just appreciate the conversation. And appreciate you guys showing up. So this is awesome.
Man,
take all the stuff in.
Yeah.
Add to the mental toolbox there.
Man, it's so grateful I'm so grateful having you all show up tonight. And man, where there's one or where there's nine, I'm just always so humbled by someone wanting to sit and chat with me for an hour or so. So I'm so appreciative, and I greatly acknowledge you all as the wonderful individuals that you are, but I acknowledge you as the beautiful, wonderful collective that you become in the space of grown folks business. Thank you all so much. Jay, did you have anything you wanted to say before we got out of here? Because I thought this has been a wonderful discussion.
Oh no, it's always great to see you guys. And I do appreciate you. I appreciate every last one of you. Meryl, it's good to see you, man. I miss you, bro. But yeah, I just love the whole discourse. I think that being technically a Gen Xer, but raised a millennial, and a lot of people don't understand that. You live in both sides. And a lot of people don't know that the millennial demographic changed 3 times. So technically some of the Gen Xers who say that they're Gen Xers are really millennials. And so a lot of times it's just your tradition and value. It has nothing to do with the generation itself. Meryl, actually, yep, you're one of the original millennials. But but I think that
Meryl's older than me.
That's what I'm saying. And that's
I am squarely Gen X. I mean, there's no debate.
I think Bob talked about how people force us to think things. Pew Research changed it 3 times before the present one. And it was funny. It's really the ones who brought in technology into everyday use. And that's all of us. And they really don't realize that it was the integration of technology, the rainbow children. It was so many different things they called us at one time. But I just want to say, like, whenever we have a strong passion about something, there's a counter that means we're ignoring. And so I just want to put that in the back of our mind. So when we have a strong stance, because we talked about how do we appreciate something, well, when we get tunnel vision on anything, no matter if we think it's good, there's something we're ignoring. And that's all I wanted to highlight.
No, I completely appreciate that observation. And I want to say lastly, because I kept forgetting to say it when we were talking about social media, and you just reminded me again. So final word for tonight is something that was covered on a show that I don't recall which one, but I think it was about social media. You have to take some personal responsibility for where you expend your energies and what you give your attention to. And that was the kind of, Meryl, I think you were there for that show. That was one of the bigger answers to that equation of the problematic parts of social media. So I think that has to be mentioned, especially in the shadow of everything we've talked about in regard to social media tonight, because that is a time requirement. It requires time, and there's a time commitment to being in that space. But your personal choices have to be ones that are more healthy and not necessarily devoted to the mire and muck of of wishing you were somebody you're not, because you're always going to be, and you're always going to know who you are in actuality. Love you guys. I appreciate the time. This has been awesome. And man, I can never have enough people in this space. It's a wonderful thing. And it's a great, what is it? The composer. It's a great symphony. Great symphony. All you guys are making music. Thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful one. Take care. Have a good night.